Dark Fate director Tim Miller claims new Terminator will scare. Misogynist internet trolls. Going by what I've seen so far, probably not nearly as much as it's going to scare executives over at 20th Century Fox from actually financing a sequel to this movie. How's it going, everybody? This is Phil. The Terminator franchise, as far as I'm concerned, it really consists of two good movies, and then it's just kind of been a mixed bag from there on out. I mean, you had Terminator 3, you had Terminator Salvation, which I enjoyed. I enjoyed parts of Terminator 3 as well. Then you had Terminator Genesis. I've seen Terminator 2, 3, and Salvation in the theaters. Genesis didn't interest me. And this movie interested me even less when I saw the trailer that came out recently. Nothing about it looked over the top, looked like it was going to really do anything groundbreaking. Every time a new Terminator movie comes out, people are hoping that it's going to be the one that kind of reinvigorates the franchise and rights the ship and does for this franchise what Terminator 2 did for it back in 1991, and that is take it to a whole new level. This to me doesn't look like that's going to be the case here. And director Tim Miller seems to be getting out ahead of the box office catastrophe that this movie could very well end up being. When you look at a summer slate of films that have underperformed, we have Dark Phoenix, which was an absolute bomb. Godzilla underperformed. Movies that people were banking on doing really well at the box office just have not held up their end of the bargain. And a movie like this that's going to come out, let's face it, you think of the Terminator franchise, you think of Arnold Schwarzenegger front and center, right? Sarah Connor, she played a part in the first movie, obviously, but she was kind of a damsel in distress. And then in Terminator 2, she was completely badass, and people love that character. Men and women alike love Sarah Connor from Terminator 2. Nobody really thinks about Sarah Connor from Terminator 1. Let's be honest, it's her badass portrayal in Terminator 2. But really, this is an Arnold Schwarzenegger vehicle, and Arnold Schwarzenegger is he's in his 70s now. The one thing that's great though about that character is he's still a Terminator, right? He's a T-800. So we know what he looks like underneath all of that flesh that seems to age like a normal person's. He's a badass robot built by Cyberdyne. We know what's under the skin here of Sarah Connor, and it's not a badass robot. It's just not. It's not liquid metal. It's not a T-1000. So bringing her back in her 60s, which again, it's kind of what they did with the Star Wars sequels. They brought the old cast members back into the fold, but they kind of march them out there, and they do it as a way to get people into the theaters. Now, this movie, you take Sarah Connor, Linda Hamilton out of this picture, and you just show these two people, and you say, hey, look, there's a new Terminator movie coming out. Are you guys pumped for these two? And you go, no, what is this? Justin Bieber and some girl who folds T-shirts at Old Navy at the end of the night. This doesn't move the needle, especially when your key demographic has always been men. The Terminator series is built off of quote-unquote toxic masculinity. It's explosions, it's violence, it's action. It's all of the things that men like to see when they go see a movie. So This right now is probably not necessarily moving the needle for what this franchise has always targeted itself towards. And what's going to happen now is when the fans don't show up to see it, and they say this doesn't really look like something that appeals to us. Well, what Tim Miller has done here is he's gotten out ahead of it, and he's insulated himself, or he's backlash proofed himself by already going and calling everybody misogynist internet trolls. There's no such thing anymore in this day and age as being somebody with an opinion. If you have a difference of opinion, you're a misogynist, or you're a racist, or you're a sexist, or you're a troll. I would think a lot of fans that I've seen, just even with the trailer, being fair, the trailer did not look like it was anything special. This cast of characters, and I hate to say it, Linda Hamilton here, she just looks kind of like like a gym teacher. There's nothing badass. You look at Linda Hamilton from Terminator 2. She looks badass, right? This doesn't really do anything. None of this does. So visually, they're off to a bad start. But anyway, let's go a little bit further into this and see what Tim Miller has to say. We're over on MovieWeb.com. We got the wonderful Kevin Berwick. He hates misogynist internet trolls as well. Everyone is a misogynist internet troll who has a difference of opinion than Kevin Berwick. So Tim Miller thinks pretty highly of the Terminator Dark Fate. Actress Mackenzie Davis and her abilities to lead the franchise. The director was recently interviewed about winning over the audience during this year's San Diego Comic-Con, which takes place next weekend. Miller is bringing the highly anticipated sequel down to the annual event to share some new footage and talk about what happened behind the scenes that made Terminator Dark Fate become a reality. You know what? If Star Wars Celebration was any indication of the way people are going to behave at the Comic-Con, they're just going to be happy to be in Hall H or wherever his panel takes place. They're going to cheer regardless. Very, very rarely. I don't even remember the last time I saw somebody get up and just say, "Hey, man, F you. This is awful." It's not going to happen. So, the audience at the box office, that's going to matter at the end of the day. Terminator Dark Fate was immediately bashed by fans, not trolls. By fans who saw it and thought that it looked pretty boring, not really all that exciting. There was nothing in that trailer that you pretty much haven't seen before. It really did nothing look like it brought anything to the next level when it was announced with a female-led cast. Well, look, again, if we go back to this picture, what about this cast picture really looks badass? Look at the cast picture for Terminator 2. You got Edward Furlong. He's just a little troublemaker kid, but he's trouble, right? You got Arnold Schwarzenegger, who's badass. He's a tank. He's a mountain of a man. And you got Linda Hamilton, who did a complete 180 in her character from the first movie. She looks like she's ready to destroy somebody. And then you go back and you look at this cast, and really, this just doesn't move the needle. That's the problem. Where this franchise was and where it finds itself now, that's where the issue lies. So, however, hardcore fans are just as happy to see Linda Hamilton, and yes, a lot of us are. We love the character of Sarah Connor back on the big screen with Arnold Schwarzenegger and a new cast. Plus, James Cameron is back with the franchise as a producer for the first time since Terminator 2. And James Cameron has he worked on the story, so a part of you wants to believe that this is going to be something fantastic, but going by what we've seen so far, it just doesn't look like anything great. It really doesn't. When talking about lead actress Mackenzie Davis, Tim Miller thinks she's going to mess with some people. He explains, if you're at all enlightened, she'll play like gangbusters. So anybody who's not enlightened and for whatever reason perhaps just doesn't like the character doesn't resonate with them, they're a closet misogynist. She'll scare the fuck out of you, is what he's saying, because she's tough and strong, but very feminine. We did not trade certain gender traits for others. She's just very strong, and that frightens some dudes. Yeah, I don't know, not this dude. You can see online the responses to some of the early shit that's out there, trolls on the internet. I don't give a fuck. Well, we'll see what happens after the end of this movie's run in the theaters. who's given what kind of Fs. Tim Miller does not seem to care about what anyone else thinks when it comes down to Terminator Dark Fate. I always find stories about women are much more interesting than men picking up guns, said Miller about taking on the sequel, because the 80s pretty much built an industry off of guys picking up guns as far as movies were concerned and action stars. I mean, between Schwarzenegger and Stallone and Bruce Willis, nobody was interested in that. Said Miller about taking on the sequel. He also spoke, I really liked what Tim Miller did with Deadpool and directing that movie on a essentially a shoestring budget. I really held him in high regard. I think he's getting defensive because he's so entrenched with this movie. He directed it, and I can understand that. I mean, it's something that he's invested a lot of his time and energy into producing and directing. So, on a certain level, I'm sure he's probably proud of it. And then when he unleashes it onto the world, it's kind of hard to see people just saying, dude, what is this piece of shit? And that's where he kind of finds himself, and he's defensive about it. But he can't be that unaware. I mean, it's just, how can you look at this franchise and see where it was between Terminator 1 and Terminator 2 and see where it's kind of gone, and then turn something out like they did into the world with that photo, that cast photo, and then the trailer, and not think that people are going to have a negative reaction to it? Your only mission is to try and raise the bar for this franchise, and you have not done that. Every movie that comes out, fans want this franchise to be rescued, and no one's been able to do it. So, again, with James Cameron coming in and writing, you got to hope that maybe there's a glimmer of hope. But the best bet for this franchise right now is probably just to do a hard reboot, and that's it. That's it. Get The Rock in there to be a Terminator, or get a young stud in there to be a Terminator, a relatively unknown up-and-comer, and just go full steam ahead and make it every bit of an 80s action, time-traveling, high-octane, explosive, cinematic experience that this franchise was known for being and for what fans wanted to be once again. Stop dicking around. Let's see. Miller had this to say: I want to give the audience a story about Sarah and these new characters and make everything else as realistic as possible. Okay, I want to sit in the audience and believe that this shit could happen to me. That's how I'm approaching it. You know what? Then maybe, because that's all what fans want. Honestly, they want to escape, and they want to believe that this could happen to them. But maybe his sensibilities for this particular franchise are not suited for it. Maybe he was the right guy to deal with Deadpool, and he's just not the right guy to deal with Terminator. That's fine. Not everybody is the right fit for every franchise. But unfortunately, we've gotten too far along, and there's no Kathleen Kennedy to come in at 90% or 80% of the film and pull the plug and reshoot the whole thing. I mean, where's Ron Howard when you need the guy? Please, try to save Terminator too, Ron. All right, as far as getting Terminator Dark Fate rolling, the idea was to have the new lead character be a woman. Tim Miller and James Cameron spent a lot of time with the authors of the Terminator novels, and it was always going to be a female in the protective role. As it turns out, Mackenzie Davis came in and elevated the part. Miller had this to say about Davis' hard work, and from the very first suggestion, it was always a woman. We had to look for someone who has the physicality, but I'm very sensitive to actors. I didn't just want a woman who could physically fit the role, but emotionally as well. Mackenzie really wanted to do it. She came after the role. She worked harder than anybody. Terminator Dark Fate would hit theaters on November 1st. Not even a summer. They're not even going to release it as a summer blockbuster. I mean, this is how far this franchise has fallen from grace, which is just around the corner. Longtime fans have been very satisfied with the trailer. Really? I've been a fan since the 80s. I don't know what the hell Kevin Berwick is talking about half the time. And look forward to seeing more singing at Comic-Con next weekend. Hopefully, we'll all get to see the aforementioned footage too. The interview with Tim Miller was originally conducted by Variety. Geez, I mean, this is this movie. Look, the only thing that gives me any kind of hope is that James Cameron is actually involved. He's involved. He's worked on the story here. But none of this to me is really moving the needle. I mean, it's just not, you know. I mean, Jesus, if you, Dark Fate director claims new Terminator will scare misogynists, internet trolls. Well, how are you going to scare them if they don't go to see the movie to begin with? If a tree falls in a forest and nobody's around, does it make a sound? Right? And if a new Terminator movie is released in the theater and misogynist internet trolls don't go to see it, will anybody ever be scared by it? Or will it even make a profit at the box office? Probably not. So, look, as far as this new Terminator movie goes, the subtitle Dark Fate is probably more of a self-fulfilling prophecy as far as the box office is going to be concerned. And this whole thing, Tim Miller, don't be that naive. The movie just doesn't look all that great. It just doesn't. I mean, outside of bringing Linda Hamilton back, which, look, everyone's happy to see her. This is your Terminator, right? This is your protector. So you're trading Arnold Schwarzenegger, the T-800. I mean, that guy, he's jacked, right? I mean, the guy, even if he wasn't a Terminator, you think he'd at least be able to fight off a Terminator. You'd feel safe with him protecting you from a Terminator. And then you got this here, which this takes the place of the T-800 Guardian from Terminator 2. Why would somebody be excited? This should be The Rock, right? I mean, that's what you'd want to see. I mean, why not? The guy's in every other movie. Get a big giant dude in here who looks badass. Put together a movie that goes hard, kicks ass, has great action. Give us some fucking violence. I mean, enough of this shit. And nobody has any balls anymore. I mean, this movie's about time travel. They should have went back into the 80s and brought some writers back and say, hey guys, look what we can do with our modern day technology. Could you please give us something that has some balls? Because everybody is so soft. Oh my God. Well, I'm sure they're going to sell 1 million action figures based off of these characters. I can't wait for the Sideshow collectibles and the Hot Toys, the $300 androgynous Terminator to come out. It's going to be it's going to be fantastic. Anyway, guys, that's it. I mean, what a shame. I can't believe what Terminator has. And these, the thing with the Terminator series is, it's a very highly regarded franchise, but if you look at the box office for the Terminator series, it hasn't even broken $2 billion, and each of the movies have performed less than the prior movie that came before it, outside of the original Terminator. It kind of, there's a pattern here. There's a pattern, and that's the problem, and fans desperately want a new Terminator to restore faith in the franchise, but every time they're let down. Every time. Nothing will ever be as satisfying as Terminator 2 as far as delivering the goods and reaching the lofty expectations of a film in this movie franchise. So that's it. They were done at Terminator 2. And anything after this now, fans always get their hopes up and they're always disappointed in the end. And the box office receipts demonstrate that. And this movie will probably continue that trend. Most likely. I mean, look at his cast. Look what's going on here. And look, it's unfortunate that it's kind of come to this, but this is where we're at, and this is kind of like a cycle of abuse with fans in this movie franchise at this point. I mean, just let it die. Just give it a hard reboot. Stop trying to continue this story. This story is over. Reboot it and take it in a different direction. That's the only thing you could do at this point, because you're beating the dead horse. You really are, and you're abusing the fans, and now you're insulting the fans as well. And that's what it's become, and that's unfortunate, because the fans, all we really want is a quality movie, a quality product turned out by studios that we have trust and faith in, and hope that they could possibly give us another great adventure with characters that we've grown to know and love, in the mythologies that we enjoy revisiting every couple of years. And they just can't see their way to giving the fans what they actually want. They're more concerned with trying to give them something that they never knew they needed before. And that's the problem. Just give us what we want, and we'll be happy to open up our wallets. So anyway, guys, let me know what you think down below. And, like, subscribe, comment, and oh, what a world. All right, I'll talk to you later. All right, take it easy, guys. Have a good night. Bye-bye.